friends, नमस्ते and जय हिंद। आई होप आप सब लोग स्वस्थ होंगे, मस्त होंगे और अपने अपने कामों में व्यस्त भी होंगे। स्वागत है एक बार फिर से मेरे यूट्यूब चैनल कृपाल ब्लॉग्स पर। आपसे गुजारिश है कि अपनी व्यस्तता से थोड़ा सा समय निकाल कर मेरे यूट्यूब चैनल को भी देख लीजिए कीजिए और सब्सक्राइब के बटन को दबा दीजिए। अगर मेरे कंटेंट आपको अच्छे लगते हो तो शेयर भी कर दीजिए। दोस्तों, अगर आपको याद हो तो मेरे अपने लास्ट वीडियो में मैंने कहा था कि मैं मिस्टर गौतम अडानी के ऊपर एक वीडियो बनाऊंगा। आई एम श्योर यू मस्ट बी सरप्राइज्ड एंड यू मस्ट हैव अ क्वेश्चन कि व्हाई अ वीडियो ऑन गौतम अडानी। Frankly speaking, when I thought of making a video on Gautam Adani, I also grappled with that question. Why Gautam Adani? The simple answer for that is, my dear friends, that ever since Modi became the Prime Minister in 2014, Adani became a hot topic, not only among the political class, but also among the elites of Delhi, the intellectuals, commentators, political reporters, and naturally among the activists of the country. There are a lot of hush-hush gossips about his friendship with Prime Minister Modi in all those circles, which now have percolated down to the masses as well. And that is precisely the reason for my choosing Adani as a subject of my video today. Dear friends, Adani's rise in India's corporate landscape has indeed been phenomenal. But if we look back into India's corporate growth in the last 15 to 20 years, there are many other entrepreneurs who have done exceptionally well and have climbed to the list of India's top 15 billionaires. But none of them has so much controversies around them as Adani has, especially with regard to expansion of his businesses, which is often linked to Modi's government at the center. Frankly speaking, my dear friends, I do not know how much truth is there in such insinuations, but I guess this may be the reason that Adani has often been closely scrutinized by those who do not like Modi and his style of governance. Dear friends, the fact of the matter is Adani became Adani much before Modi emerged as a key player in India's political scene. Looking back at the Forbes business magazine's list of Indian billionaires in 2010, Adani has been there at the 7th position among the top 10 billionaires of India at that time. Actually, Adani emerged as a business leader way back in 1995 itself, when he acquired the Mundra port in the Gulf of Kutch in Gujarat as India's first private port during the chief ministership of Chimanbhai Patel of the Congress Party. He formed the company Mundra Port and Special Economic Zone Limited, which later expanded into Adani Ports and SEZ Limited. And today, the Mundra Port is the largest container and commercial port of India in the private sector. Subsequently, my dear friends, in 1996, Adani was given to run the Mundra thermal power plant as well by the then Chief Minister of Gujarat, Mr. Bagela. The Mundra thermal power plant today is the largest privately run power plant in India. It is also the second largest power plant in this country after a plant run by the NTPC. With these businesses, Adani became Adani. And today, Adani is operating 11 thermal power plants across the country in different states. He is operating 14 ports, both in the east and the western coast of India. By the way, he is also operating 3 ports abroad, one in Colombo, the second is Haifa in Israel, and the third one at Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. And he is building a fourth one in Vietnam. It is under construction. So that is how Adani's empire has expanded in recent years. My dear friends, today if you look into Adani's businesses, the large part of his business is now in India's infrastructure sector, core sectors, power, ports, airports, green energy, solar energy, so on and so forth. As India's economy grows, as has been growing for the last 10 years, we are the fastest growing economy of the world. These infrastructural sectors, core sectors, are bound to grow as well. And therefore, the growth of India's economy is bound to grow again. That's the reality. So now coming back, my dear friends, to the controversies associated with Adani in recent years. The prominent one is the Hindenburg Research report of February 2023. Now, whether it was a coincidence or a deliberate move, the report was released by the Hindenburg Research just a couple of days before the budget session of the parliament was to start. As the report had accused Adani of stock manipulations, financial irregularities, and also falsification of his company's balance sheets. In other words, the Hindenburg Research was accusing Adani companies of showing inflated profits to the public or the shareholders across the board. Whereas, according to them, his companies were not doing well. They have huge outstanding loans. Even the Hindenburg Research, I remember, has raised concern in the report about India's banking system and was precisely saying that those banks who have given huge loans to the Adani business may face debt defaults, and this may lead to India's banking sector suffering huge setbacks. Therefore, this support of the Hindenburg was bound to create ripples in the stock market. This is what happened. Adani stocks nosedived. People, those who have invested in Adani stocks, suffered losses. Adani himself suffered huge losses in terms of his net worth. And there was a uproar in the parliament. The parliament even was not able to function for a couple of days, perhaps, and the matter went to the Supreme Court of India. And the Supreme Court of India appointed an expert committee to look into those allegations. The committee, which when gave its report, there was nothing substantial which could be proved. Therefore, the matter is now with the Securities Exchange Board of India, SEBI, which is still investigating those allegations against Adani and his companies. Dear friends, the second controversy and the latest one against Mr. Adani is his indictment by the United States Securities Exchange Board on the pretext that while raising money from the US market, from the US investors, Adani deliberately hid some information from the US investors. And what is that information that Adani did not disclose? As per the Securities Exchange Board of USA, Adani Green Energy, which he was selling to the Andhra Pradesh government, among many others, has tried to bribe the Andhra Pradesh government officers or the state electricity board's officers for getting that contract. It is alleged he is not given the bribe. He was offering the bribe. Therefore, this information he has hidden from the US investors, and as per the US law, anybody who is raising money from US investors cannot hide information from them. He can be prosecuted for that. So the matter is under investigation. The attorneys have indicted him, and the US Securities Exchange Board has asked for details from the Securities Exchange Board of India and others, those who matter. So the matter is still live. What will happen in that matter, we'll come to know in the due course of time. Therefore, my dear friends, whether Adani has been following wrong corporate practices or not, whether he has been accorded undue favors by the Modi government or not, nobody knows. There is not an iota of evidence so far to suggest or suspect him of getting undue government favors or doing wrongful things. Let the Securities Exchange Board of India come out with their report on Adani Group of companies. Till then, Adani is innocent until proved otherwise. However, this Adani saga has left some very, very important points to ponder upon, which we all must ponder upon. These points, to my mind, my dear friends, are: number one, if a group of 8 or 10 people at Hindeburg Research, that too sitting far away in New York, could come out with such a report on Adani Group's companies, what stops India's intellectuals, the youth, the investigative journalists to find out the truth behind the Adani saga? Point number 2. Why the report of a short-selling firm like the Hindenburg Research became a gospel truth for Indian politicians, members of parliament, media, and activists who, I'm pretty sure, may not have heard the name of Hindenburg before ever. Point number 3. The 34 my lords sitting in the Supreme Court of India, who have no time to dispense justice to lakhs of cases of ordinary Indians pending in the court for years and years. But they were so concerned about the Hindenburg report that they took up the matter in a tearing hurry. I'm sure, my dear friends, majority of those 34 my lords of the Supreme Court also may have heard the name of Hindenburg Research for the first time in their lives. And lastly, my dear friends, the two highest institutions of our country, the Parliament and the Supreme Court of India, also need to seriously ponder upon their misplaced priorities. The parliamentarians, my dear friends, who represent 1.4 billion people of the country, often seen shouting at each other in the parliament, sloganeering, boycotting, rather than debating and discussing issues concerning the common people. At the same time, the Supreme Court of India, which again is the only court in this country for 1.4 billion people, has demonstrated its misplaced priorities by taking up matters not concerning the common people, at the cost of lakhs and lakhs of under-trials languishing in jails without a fair or proper trial, because courts have no time for them but listening arguments for weeks together on matters like demonetization, which happened in 2016. Even if they say it was wrong, it cannot be reversed now. For such useless matters, the Supreme Court of India spared 2 weeks' time to debate, argument, so on and so forth. But they don't have time for giving justice to those under trials. The court often, at the pretext of human rights, takes up matters of the high and mighty in this country for bail, be it a politician, be it a business person, be it an influential social person, and spend hours and hours arguing for those. But what about the human rights of those millions of people who are languishing in jails? Do they have no right? Their human rights is not the concern of the court, but they are concerned about the human rights of those terrorists, those politicians, those business people. That's why I say both those institutions of our country, the Parliament and the Supreme Court of India, they often have misplaced priorities. Dear friends, they need to act now. The time is running out. The Parliament and the Supreme Court of India, they need to act now and act fast, correct themselves. Otherwise, their reputation among the 1.4 billion people will go to the winds, and that will not be the finest day for this democracy in this country. That's all I have to say, my dear friends. Thank you very much